Good Monday morning. Welcome to Motivation Monday. Hopefully we can provide you with some kind of a tidbit of information here today that will help you in your business. And get this rolling here. Here's my quote of the week. You're not obligated to win. You're just obligated to keep trying to do your best you can every day. Marian Wright Edelman. There's kind of our schedule here real quick. We'll have a little tip of the week. We'll do some sales shout outs. And then today's topic is starting a healthcare discussion, trying to look at different ways to break through that shield that so many people put up when approached about their healthcare. Our tip. Today's tip is about working with an interpreter. Until you've filled out a Medicare application in Russian through an interpreter, I don't think you've ever really gone through the effort of filling out an application like that. Here's a few tips that when you do work with an interpreter is allow the interpreter to greet you and the customer. Always speak in the first person. Don't try to talk to your customer, not to the interpreter, but keeping that in mind, try to use short but complete sentences, something that can be easily translated. Always avoid using any kind of slang or jargon, especially because most of that just does not transfer well. Saying something like, no way, Jose, implies that the other person knows that there is no Jose. Okay. And then allow the interpreter to clarify things in linguistics. So many times they will ask you questions so that they can put what you're telling the person into context, and you should know that. There are many requirements that we're up against that requires us to be able to help the person in their native language. So if you're working in the ACA or Medicare, you're literally required to have the ability to bring in an interpreter. So just keep those things in mind, and hopefully it won't be too much of a problem for you. Looking at some sales, looking at last week, short term was still a good combination of NHIC and UHC. Limited medical, I noticed it was mostly NHIC and HCSC, which is what Blue Cross Blue Shield. Accident, almost entirely National General. And the same with critical illness. Dental, we saw usually NHIC, which has really been making some inroads in dental, and then UHC. Our leaders in there, it seems like Bill Cox is pretty much had the lead on most things, but as far as STM, he was Bill Cox, Richard Banfield, and Rebecca Heppert. And then for limited medical, again, Bill Cox and Rebecca. Accident, Bill again. I'm real accustomed to seeing whoever led the week in short term also did an accident, because that's a kind of a natural pairing in there. And then we also saw Brian Greenberg in accidents. Medicare for the area of Medicare Advantage plans was led by Daniel Hanich, and for Medicare supplement plans, it was Andrew McCurran. So good job, a lot of kudos going out there. I'm glad to see they're blazing the way and making money. So what I have here for us is talking about starting a healthcare discussion. And these are, so I get to really pull out a pencil and take some notes here, because having a bank of really good open-ended questions can break the most stubborn caller. So many times you'll find yourself kind of at a loss with a person who simply only wants to give you yes or no answers, and you've got to break through that to really do a good needs assessment to determine exactly what's going to work best for them. And so having a good bank of questions that you can glance down at when you run up against that blank wall, and be able to pull these out and ask these questions and hopefully stimulate the conversation to help you, one, to qualify the individual, and number two is really find that best plan for them. I've always gone with the old adage that health insurance should be the best that the person can afford. And so that can usually mean multiple plans and cross-selling, and you can't do that if you don't have a good picture of what their situation is. So my first question is, to start off with, is how satisfied are you with your current health insurance plan? I mean, that can lead to, answers of, I can't see the doctors I want to see, or so if it has a weak network, or, I'm paying too much, I have too high a deductible. I mean, all of those kinds of questions can be uncovered by asking how satisfied you are with your health insurance plan. Hopefully they will break that down and give you some indication of where the problems are in there. But this is just a good one to have in the bank. Number two, what's the biggest challenge you face with respect to your health insurance? So again, if that first one didn't uncover anything for you, maybe this is the way of wording that same question that can, may hopefully draw a better response and start to pull the information out of the individual. I mean, stuff like, what's your birth date, what's your zip code, and things like that are pretty easy, straightforward questions that you can ask, but they don't help with understanding what the person wants and needs in their health care. And this one is also a great one. Are there any other decision makers who have a say in your choice of coverage? So you may find that you're talking to one person and they're not the one that's going to truly be making all the choices. So, it could be, and never assume that it's the man. That is going to get you in trouble more often than not if you're assuming that they're the one that's, in control of the money or in control of what they think they need for health insurance coverage. So I would always ask, is there anyone else that should be part of this conversation? It would also uncover if they have somebody else who has power of attorney. They may not be able to make their own decisions. So there might be someone else that has to be there when they do that. So a question like this can open that up for you. And this is always a good one. What are your top health and wellness priorities in the coming year for you and anyone else included on your policy? This could uncover that, child that's heading off to school, that's going to need something, while they're away from home, things like that. And it's also going to tell you, things like what's really important to them. Is it the annual physical? Is it maybe a fitness program as part of their health care? Because a lot of plans include those kinds of things. I mean, what is it that they need? It could even uncover if they had dental needs that without asking if they had dental insurance. My favorite question there has always been, do you have teeth? And don't assume that they do. and see if they want some protection in there. What's your healthcare budget right now? Try to uncover exactly what it is that they feel that they can afford for insurance. Because a lot of times what we have to make sure is this going to be one where it's a short-term plan fits well, or if ACA is a must, are they going to get some kind of a credit in there that can make it affordable? Because we all know that ACA plans, unless you're getting that tax credit on there, it's really not affordable, even though it was the Affordable Care Act. So nailing down that budget, and I would usually provide some options to the customer that's going to be less than, about, and then probably a little bit more than what they tell me their budget is. And I would put together a plan, usually what I call the good, better, best format. A top plan, a second choice, and a really bare bones third choice, depending on exactly what it is that they tell me their budget is, and those other healthcare needs that they're talking about. How many times have you seen a doctor this last year? I mean, that can uncover a lot. I've had everything from discovering that they see the doctor, once or twice a month, to they haven't seen the doctor in years. And that's always good information, because that kind of gives you a state of their health without asking about health. Okay? So, you got to watch some of the HIPAA rules these days when it comes to asking some of those questions. So I've always found this is a good question that can unlock a lot of information over what's going on with them. How flexible are you about choosing specific providers and pharmacies, especially if they've come in and they've talked about having a very limited network in the past, especially if they've been using an ACA plan. Those exclusive provider networks are so narrow that they can really limit people in some places. And they will find that a lot of the more desired hospital in an area may not be one that takes an ACA plan. It may not let you in there. Whereas some of the short-term plans could, or even a limited medical would cover the cost if they went there. So just be sure that we're asking, the right questions about providers and pharmacy networks, and prescriptions that they need, because a lot of times prescriptions alone could drive you into an ACA plan. How often do you travel? I usually really like to use this with my older customers, because many of them like to spend time, maybe in the northern tier during the summer, but head to the southern tier of states during the winter, where that's a much milder climate. And it's good to uncover that, because again, those exclusive provider networks are not going to do well in some of those situations. They will have emergency coverage outside of their home area, but you just want to try to determine exactly what it is they need. Maybe it's got to be a PPO plan, just because of something like travel. What policy restrictions are a deal breaker for you? Okay. You may find that some people have just experienced some really horrible stuff in some of those exclusive provider networks that are so narrow, or maybe the fact that they need to have a referral, is a deal breaker. Things like that, where they have to go through that gatekeeper before they can do anything. Just kind of find out what kind of thing it is that they really dislike. There were other questions that may have uncovered that, but this is a little bit more direct on finding out what it was that they didn't like about some of the other plans. Or it could even just stimulate a memory for them. I've talked to people who've used things like Kaiser, where they really like it because it's a one-stop shop. However, getting things scheduled through them can be really tough in some areas, where you have a long wait to see a specialist or something. So those kind of restrictions could be a deal buster depending on what that person's situation is. And then again, another one of my favorites, if budget or if money wasn't a consideration, what benefits would your perfect policy include? So you can really kind of see what it is that they want in a plan that maybe they're not getting in their current plan. It could be, no prescription coverage, because they're in some, a really restrictive short-term plan that doesn't cover that, since most of them don't, but you may want to then be looking at one that does cover prescriptions. So jot down these 10 questions. If you didn't jot them down and you'd like me to email it to you, that's also possible. I can do that. Just email me at training@ahcpsales.com, and I'd be glad to provide the list of questions. That's my morning motivation topic. Hopefully you can get out there and uncover some customers and make some sales using these questions to break through some of the more stubborn callers. That's what I've got for you today. You guys have a great week, and I don't know if it's me next week, but we'll see you on next Motivation Monday.